Hey guys, this is Sundown Rider here, and this is going to be my chapter review to One Piece 841, To the East Blue. Now, my chapter review is late today, and it's going to be late probably for however many weeks, I don't know, until I get to it, because I've started my third year in university, so it's going to be quite hectic. It's going to be my dissertation year, so yeah, should be fun times, but I'm still going to do my review, so let's get to it. So the cover page is Whitebeard's mustache being chewed on by some goats. It's pretty funny, but nothing special. Just nice to see Whitebeard again, actually. So the chapter starts off with a German 66 soldier taking a fancy meal somewhere, and the cooks in the German 66 kingdom wonder where the food's being taken and why. And their senior cook says it's none of their business, they're just the cooks, they don't need to question it. And then he tells them to shut up about speculating where the meal could be going. And they speculate that it could be the king's new mistress who's getting this awesome meal. It could be a VIP in the castle. So they're really just kind of throwing around rumors they've heard. And then they've also heard, apparently, that some guards heard shrieks down from the dungeons, which could very well be Sanji. We assume it's been Sanji. So then next panel we see Sanji with his iron mask on, and there's a little box which says that Sanji's been down there. He's been down there in the dungeons for 6 months, for half a year. Oh my god. So it's just a horrible time for Sanji. So this is still the flashback, by the way. So food's being taken down to Sanji, and he's been given it by the German 66 soldiers. And he has to have his face mask lowered, the jaw part, he has to have it lowered just so that he can eat. He has to get that lowered by one of the German 66. So then he can either hear, he looks up and while he's eating, and he can either hear or he assumes, because he knows the time of day from when he's being fed. Or I think he just assumes, or he can hear his siblings training. And this part is really, really heartbreaking, because the scientist tells Judge these kids are ballers, they're really magnificent. To call them superhumans would be underrating them. And Judge is really, really hyped, and he hugs his kids, and he tells them that they make him proud. He tells them he loves them more than anything. And this is instantly juxtaposed with a panel of Sanji just eating in the dungeons alone. And I was like, I'm not really a mushy type of guy, but I was just like, oh man, that's hitting me right in the feels, man. Come on. So yeah, I was just like, geez, that's really, really sad. So then within the flashback, Sanji has another flashback where he's reminiscing to a time he was cooking in the kitchen, and the staff and the cooks there are telling him that he shouldn't, he's royal and everything, but he continues to do it anyway. He cuts his finger and he carries on. So when he's done, he makes a gnarly looking meal. It's really horrifying. It's got like fish heads, bananas poking out of everywhere. It's got like this cheese sauce on it, I don't know, but he's proud. He seems to be happy with it. So a German 66 soldier then escorts Sanji, asking him if he wants to go to the medical ward alone. So as soon as they brought up the medical ward, I assumed maybe it's someone dear to Sanji. It might not be his mom, but it will be someone dear to him, especially if Sanji's cooking for them. So yeah, the German 66 soldier escorts Sanji, and Sanji says, don't worry about it, you just stay here. And it turns out the medical ward is on the outskirts of the castle grounds, and the weather is terrible, so Sanji's just going to go alone. Now, why would the medical ward be on the outskirts of the kingdom if Sanji's mother could possibly be there? At this point in the chapter, we didn't know, but I've read it now, so we know that his mom was there. But why would it be on the outskirts if if the queen is there? Why would Vinsmoke Judge put his queen there? Does he have no heart for his queen? Does he have no love for his queen as well? Is she so imperfect that he couldn't love her? But he's had like five kids with her, so I don't know, but she's there. Maybe it's just that she's dying or something and he can't bear to look at her. So she's there in the medical ward. So Sanji carries on saying not to mention this to his father, and then people are running indoors from the oncoming storm. A local dog sniffs out Sanji's food and attacks him. So we then see Sanji outside a building with a red plus sign on it, and we assume it's a hospital. He's bloodied, but he's met by a lady who seems to be friendly. She looks like a maid. So we then see the maid saying that the queen, or Sanji's mom, is having trouble keeping down food. She tastes Sanji's, and a skull flies out of her mouth. The maid tastes his food and the skull just flies out of her mouth. It's pretty funny. So Sanji's mom says that Sanji will get a talking to from his dad. We get like, it shifts the scene and Sanji's standing in front of his mom, who seems to be bedridden. So she says, you're going to get a talking to from your dad, but she doesn't say it in a demeaning tone. She kind of just says, matter of factly, like, yeah, it's going to happen, but thank you for being here anyway. So she sees the food, and Sanji seems upset. So she tells her maid, Epony, that she need not prepare her meals anymore. She would eat the meals Sanji will prepare. So Eponi's all like, the food that Sanji's gonna give you got messed up on the way here, and we threw it in the trash and everything. And Sanji's like, yeah, sorry about that. I dropped it while I was getting. He says there was an incident, but he says I assume he dropped it while he was getting attacked by the dog. And while it was attacking him, it got crushed and it got wet in the rain. And she still eats it. She's like, yeah, let me just taste it. And it's got evil looking fumes coming off of it. It's hilarious. But she says it tastes great. Much to Eponi's shock, she doesn't understand a mother's love. And Sanji's happy, and she finishes all the food. So just before I carry on, I'd like to say there's a striking resemblance with Reiju and Sanji's mom. Obviously, being Reiju's mom, most likely, we assume. They have their hair over the same side. She's got that same thing that Sanji does, but she looks almost identical to Reiju. She looks pretty much, she is Reiju, and she's got her hair covering her right eye, I think it is. Sanji's hair switches over, but he also has his hair covering his eyes, well, one of his eyes. So this is very much like Reiju, and I think only Sanji and Reiju really have hair that covers their eyes. I mean, like, Niji has his hair coming down, but it doesn't really cover his eyes, because when he turns, it's more like a pompadour type thing. So next panel, we see the tombstone of Sanji's mother confirming her death, and while Sanji, this is where Sanji stops reminiscing inside the flashback. So we're still inside the flashback. So he then asks one of the German 66 for a cookbook and some cooking utensils. This is where he finds out about the All Blue in this cookbook. I assume he must be reading up about fish and stuff. So his brothers finally find out about him being down in the dungeons, and they realize their father's charade and shame, the shame being Sanji. So they say they can bring their father happiness by really killing off Sanji. So they beat him up, they brutalize him, absolutely demolish him. So I'd like to make a point here that although Ichiji provided the key and he's always talking smack, he always just watches the beating and never takes part. He's always just watching, calmly analyzing, and I'm not sure whether that gives me a bad vibe or whether it gives me a good vibe, that he might just be chicken. But usually the characters that hang back, like the Rob Lucci's and stuff, the analytical characters, they're the ones to be wary of. So yeah, that was weird. Ichiji's always standing back. So then we see Reiju, and she's listening in from the stairs, and she's annoyed at her brother's mistreatment by her other brothers. So she, as usual, applies first aid to Sanji, saying that she's not on his side, that she doesn't want to end up like in his situation as their target, as the brothers' target. She says the brothers may have turned into ultimate warriors like her father would have wanted and has wanted, but they lack empathy and sympathy. They lack emotion. So she says the modifications were successful on her, but she's different. She has sympathy and empathy, which is why she does first aid on Sanji repetitively. So she tells Sanji that they're climbing the red line to fight wars in East Blue, and almost as she says it, or I assume it must have been later on because we don't see the time in between. But Sanji's room kind of turns on its side and he just falls against the wall, which is now the floor, because the Denden Mushi type castles are literally climbing up the walls of the red line. They're crossing over the red line. This is a journey of 3 weeks. So they're actually climbing over the red line. We've never seen anything about this, and I may not look hype, but I was actually really, really hype about this. They're climbing over the red line. And because they have their kind of passport as royals, they can just climb over and go to the other side like it's nothing. So they can actually traverse the red line without going, like, down the the reverse mountain. I was about to say Brokeback Mountain, but so Sanji's brothers continue to abuse him, and Reiju continues to patch him up. So Sanji then tells Reiju that he wants to become a chef, and she tells him not to tell her, obviously to set up some sort of distance between herself and himself, so that she doesn't become too connected with him and that she doesn't become too emotional when he eventually does die or leave. So she doesn't care too much for him. So in East Blue, when they get to East Blue, they wage war against the Kotzians. We've never heard about the Kotzians, but Sanji then asks Reiju while they're having the war, through a flood of tears, he asks that if he ran away here in East Blue, would he ever see Judge again? Would he ever see his face again? So Reiju's on the brink of tears, knowing that Sanji wants to escape now, and that he's gonna do his best to escape. And she tells Sanji to step away from his bars. So she pries the bars apart and tells Sanji he won't get a second chance. Sanji looks for the keys to his mask and gets caught by his father. So Sanji tells Judge that he's leaving. Judge says a commoner like Sanji and someone of his ilk would never survive in the real world. He's too weak. He's too emotional. He'll die. Sanji doesn't care. But as he's saying that, Judge is like, that's music to my ears. And Sanji can't hold back his tears. And this part was so heartbreaking once again. Judge is basically saying, the fact that you want to leave of your own volition, this is music to my ears. I hope you die. Get out. So when Sanji cries, I was like, come on, man. And Judge goes on that saying his humanity didn't allow him to dispose of Sanji himself. Dispose of Sanji like he's just some piece of waste. But now Sanji wants to leave of his own volition. He tells Sanji, yeah, go ahead, take the keys to your mask as well. Get out of here. So Judge says he has one last thing to ask of Sanji. A familial concern, something to do with family. Sanji looks up, maybe in hope. He looks almost desperate for some last bit of like, I love you or something like that. Only for Judge to say, never identify yourself as one of my offspring. You're the sole blemish in my life. The only thing I'm ashamed of. Hearing this, Sanji just can't hold it back anymore. He starts to bawl, he's wailing, and we finally see the always smiling Reiju listening in, and she's crying. She's crying completely at Sanji's devastation. So the war goes on. A cruise ship is near, a cruise ship with a wine bottle as its like figurehead, and the Germa 66 leave it be. It's not in their instruction to take over it. So Reiju tells Sanji, she points at the ship and says, board that ship and get out of here. She tells him just before he escapes, she's got her forehead to his forehead saying, you can't ever come back here. And she's crying. She's saying this through her own tears. She says the world is vast and maybe one day you'll find people who will treat you like the way you deserve to be treated. Almost echoing the words of Jaguar D's soul. So he runs away then, trying to board the ship. And she shouts not to stop, not to turn back. So we come back to the present time where Sanji's beaten on the ground. This is in his adult form. And his brothers are walking away. Reiju then randomly appears and tells the medics to go away. And mentions Sanji does not look like he's going to see his fiancée, that he's all beaten up. So she asks why he cares about the Baratie so much. She then says she knows Sanji has few pleasant memories in the Germa Kingdom. And we know why Sanji cares about the Baratie so much. It's where he learned to be a chef, his dream, and where his real adoptive father is, where his almost the father he prefers over his biological father. That's where his father is. So we shift scenes to Luffy. It's been so long since we've seen Luffy, like 3 weeks. So it's been 11 hours since the fight with Cracker had began, and it's still going on. And we see Luffy, and he looks like he's in his Gomu Gomu no Fusen. He's fat as hell, and he shouts he's full. So Cracker says nobody told you to eat them, amidst the half-eaten bodies of Cracker armors just strewn about the place. So Luffy says he's not passing on free biscuits. And I was laughing my ass off because all this implied and it showed that Luffy hasn't... I didn't think it would happen. Loads of people said that Luffy was going to start eating Cracker's armors and he was going to start eating all the Cracker armor biscuits and stuff, the biscuit knights. But I was like, nah, this is a serious fight. You know, Oda's not going to go down that way. Things are serious now. And it went exactly down that path. I was like, yo, okay, this is pretty funny. This is pretty cool. And it was a nice change of vibe, you know, from the depressing Sanji to this funny Luffy fight. So Luffy still has a bit of blood trickling and he does seem to be a bit tired. I'm surprised he's not all out because of his Gear 4th, but he's been munching on Cracker's armors. So Cracker himself is wheezing now and he says fight, run, eat, repeat. That's all Luffy's doing and he hates Luffy's strategy. So Nami's inside the mouth of King Baum, the big tree guy, who seems to have the top bit of his head missing. Maybe it was Cracker doing some sort of slash with his sword and he just cut it off. Nami is surprised that Cracker can indeed produce an infinite amount of biscuits like he said, but Luffy says Cracker's stamina is not infinite. Cracker says Luffy will explode and die, and Luffy says he'll eat it all and he will see Sanji. So overall, for me, it was a really, really enjoyable chapter. So much heartbreak, so much tension and just nastiness in that first 3/4, and then seeing in the majority of the chapter, and then we see Luffy again eating his way through Cracker's army. It was a 4 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed this chapter. There wasn't, maybe even a 4.5, but now I'm going to stick with 4 out of 5. There wasn't anything like that punched it through into the 4.5, 5 out of 5 category, but it was a really good chapter. Let me know what you guys think. Any theories you got from this chapter, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys later.